You know, it was forecasted to be somewhat windy, but it's definitely worse than what I showed. The thing about springtime in the Rockies is you can count on it being damn windy. So, just a bummer. This is the second trip I've tried to take in about the span of a week, and I haven't been able to complete the mission. This whole next week looks pretty windy. So, like 50, 60 mile an hour some days. I was trying to get out here while I could, but, well, you know, a lot of times this is what happens. There's a lot of times you try and fail, and yeah, you got to come back and try again. All right, welcome back to the hangar for a episode of Todd's nearly useless tech tips. So, this is something I've been working on for a little bit, and that is the oil cooler placement. So, with the turboed motor, you know, it makes a lot of power, makes a lot of heat. Temperatures are always going to be a thing. I've been working with this for a little bit, and I did something that I think I'm seeing some pretty big improvements. And I want to say I saw somebody else do this. It might have been Mark Pringle with his Turbo S7. I can't remember for sure, but I swear I saw at least one other person, and that is set this oil cooler back. Okay, so I was able to utilize, if you're familiar with like the setup on a RANS, in that back corner on the back side there's a bracket that can swivel on this rod, and I was able to reutilize that. I just had to twist that around, and then I used an L piece of aluminum to make a bracket coming off the gearbox. So utilizing the same major mount, and then just extended the other mounts and had to play with them a little bit, nothing too serious. And then I isolated all of them with a piece of silicone coupler for like a vibration damper. And then I did put some baffle material and a little lip on here and some baffle material over here. I don't think any of that had a real major effect. The major effect was moving this back. Now, I did cut this out. These are at an angle, so by cutting that back this way, it opens up the nostril a little bit. But this worked and saw a big improvement before I did that. That just gave me another little noticeable improvement. Anyway, you would think by pushing this back it wouldn't work as well as it does up against the cowling where it's almost sealed and just forcing everything through it. But it actually seems to cool a lot better. Not like 5 or 10 degrees, but I mean like 20 degrees, 30 degrees, you know, something crazy like that is the kind of numbers I've been seeing since I moved that. And I think it might actually cool well enough to cool this turbo motor in the summer. You know, time will tell. We'll see. We're heading that way. Yeah, just, I don't know, give it a shot. Hopefully, you know, it'll work as well for you guys as it did for me. I would say there's about 2.5 inches, you know, it's set back about 2.5 inches now from the inside lip of the cowling, something like that. Okay, so it's noticeably back in there. Literally nobody runs that baffle that Rotax makes that sits down over the heads with an inlet and forces air over the cylinders. It probably would be a really good idea. None of us have it. So you're just relying on some just random air blasting around in the cowling to cool those cylinders, and I think the more the better. So opening this up and setting that back gives a lot more airflow into the cowl. You know, this side I've just got my cold air inlet for the turbo up there. Other than that, it's wide open, and I really think that that's a good idea. Okay, also on a 7 with the radiator down underneath, of course, the more air you can blast through the cowl, the better, and that's helped that too. That sucker runs super cool now. Anyway, that's it for today for my mostly worthless but possibly helpful tech tip of the day. All right, let's go flying. Man, this is super neat. I don't know. It's just really different, you know. I haven't found anything quite like this around Colorado, so that's badass. What a super cool spot. That's awesome. Lots of room to land. You know, it's pretty high up here. It's like 7,600 or 7,800 or something like that. MSL, but yeah, lots of room. So, no big deal. Super nice place to land. Just really neat. This was fun. Hey guys, just a quick note on that spot there, landing in the sandbar in the river under the power lines. Those lines are pretty big lines, and actually there's pretty ample room to squeeze underneath them. Even if you had to, you botched the landing and had to go around, as long as you stay low, you can go right underneath them. This is a spot I've looked at a few times. There's not a lot of good sandbars to land there, and so I've been looking at this spot, and I just had to let my brain process a little bit and until I felt confident enough to do it. Ended up being no big deal. But it's one of those things, you never want to rush right out and just jump headfirst into something. Sometimes you got to look at a spot and think about it, think about all the scenarios and possibilities and what you're going to do you know, based on those different things, those different scenarios before you give it a shot. But anyway, fun spot, a little bit of a quartering tailwind on both takeoff and landing. I just like that direction better, but there's a little bit more wind than I realized. And it was pretty warm out, and it was pretty heavy, but ended up not being too big a factor, even though it was short. And as far as flying it off, I think subconsciously, even though I knew I was well past the wires because they're about literally in the middle of the little island, I kind of just let it build some speed and fly itself off. And I think that brings up another point. You know, in STOL contests, it's all about taking off as short as possible, landing as short as possible. And I practice that pretty much all the time. Pretty much every landing and takeoff, I've got that in mind. But, you know, out in the real world, when you're not doing a STOL contest, I think sometimes it's better to use the available room you have, build up a little extra airspeed, fly it off with a little more speed. You know, you're over water. I was dealing with a little bit of tailwind. There can be some sinking air. There's no reason to come out right above stall, you know, clawing your way into the air and just kind of asking for a problem. I think, you know, if there's an obstacle in front of you, sure, get it off the ground, get it up over that obstacle, then flatten it out and build up some speed. In this case, just fly it out nice, no big deal. Cool spot, a lot of fun. So anyway, thanks guys for watching the video. More stuff to come, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Wow, that is weird crap.